Right.
Okay. Shenemar Zacharas Hayom Hazeh Sheyitzasei Mitzrayim. Kamo Shenemar Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos. So everybody bothers, what's the Kamo? But we just saw in the Mechilta that he brings, means he said.
But he brings Zachar second in the Mechilta.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as Kamo Shenemar Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos, in the Mechilta he brought the comparison, and the Mechilta was only bringing the comparison to show that there was a tzivui. Because for some reason you might have thought that this Shenemar Zacharas Hayom Hazeh Sheyitzasei Mitzrayim wasn't a tzivui, and he brings a raya from Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos to the language of Zachar as a lashon of a tzivui. I just don't know how would I have thought the pasuk didn't mean a tzivui. When he brings the Mechilta.
When he brings the Mechilta here, it's because he says you would have thought he got it mincha means there was no ben.
No, but then he brings that to Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos instead of bringing, maybe it was the first one when it says Zachar. I know I remembered to show that it's a tzivui, he said.
He does give the argument that it's like.
No, he says
Siva l'Zachar Kamo Amru
Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos l'Kacho. In other words, when it says, so it seems to me there was some havamina in it that you could translate those words by Yomer Moshe Zacharas Hayom Hazeh Sheyitzasei Mitzrayim. It wasn't a tzivui, and he's saying Kolomar, that pasuk means that you have to Moshe was being mitzvah them to remember it, just like we find that expression Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos l'Kacho, where that Zachar is a tzivui also, right?
Right. But he says specifically, but he says that the Beinol Bein Acher Menayim Tamad Lomer Yom Moshe Zachar, and how do you understand it? It's in that specific context.
Right.
How do you understand it's a tzivui?
Right.
But now he's making it the primary tzivui.
Yeah, that's the point. But as far as that, because I know the Meforshim all go, what's he bringing in Zacharas Hayom HaShabbos? What does that teach us more than Zachar, right? Yeah. So they say that different pshatim that it has to be just like there. It's on Shabbos. This is on Leil Tesvav and not before. Or they say different. It has to be al yain. I think there were some says just like Kiddush is al yain. But the Ram over here, and when he brings the same mitzvahs, when he compares the pasuk of Zachar to Shabbos, he's just using it to show that Zachar is a lashon of a tzivui. Okay, but the main point is he's changed. Okay, here he's saying that the whole mitzvah is the ikra. The mitzvah is this pasuk of Moshe about Zacharas Hayom Hazeh Sheyitzasei Mitzrayim.
How many years were between the Sefer Mitzvahs and when he wrote this?
There's a lot of times he changes from Sefer Mitzvahs to the but it's good to know what made him change.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And then he says, because this pasuk of Zachar doesn't say when. That's like the Mechilta, right? They bring the pasuk V'gada Levincha to tell you when the so it's serious. So how does that pasuk tell us about Zachar? Maybe it's two different inyanim, and when is B'leila? So maybe Zachar is not B'leila. So how do you know that the V'gada Levincha is a Gili?
Which takes you back to the Minchas Chinuch, because that's really. I mean, even though Rambam doesn't say it's a mitzvah, he talks about with Zachar being Havamim B'chol Yom. I mean, right? But it's not what the Rambam says.
Strange where he put the Nefesh Shein Levin. The point is, I mean, it says he got it to Levincha. So how do you know Alabish Shein Levin? Really, he should have said Zachar is talking without a. Doesn't mention it then. You know,
yeah, right. There's nowhere Alabish Shein Levin.
That's after he brought the pasuk. We got it on Levincha. So don't think it's only when you have a son. Alabish Shein Levin. That goes back on the pasuk of Zachar Siyam Ha.
That's what he says in the Sefer Mitzvahs.
Right. It goes back to Zachar, but here he puts it after. No, that's probably what he meant. Afilu chacham gedolim chayavim l'savos Yisrael v'chol hamarech v'dvarim she'iru shehaya harei mishabuch.
He doesn't say anything. Yeah, it's interesting because he has mitzvah shel Torah sabim nisim v'niflos shenasu l'avatim, but doesn't say anything about nekama.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and he also doesn't say sha'asa lanu.
Maybe the tone of the psukim, because maybe what does it actually say in the pasuk of Yigav Levincha?
Rashi says Shazam Li. What's the
But where's our session? Leave it say in Mitzrayim, but does it say what you actually say?
So interesting.
Definitely change the order.
So interesting, his language here. Masha Asa Lanu Hashem.
Yeah, we didn't know for sure exactly what he was reading.
But Lanu include, like Lanu is much more personal. He says Shinasu Labotenu b'Mitzrayim.
And look in the Yad after the first paragraph.
Yeah.
They got finished saying there's a mitzvah essay. Then he says in Beis, mitzvah l'odiya l'banim. Yeah, filu lo shalu shenemar. You got to Levincha. So I don't understand. Dov has a cloud that when he doesn't say mitzvah essay, Sam says mitzvah, he doesn't mean it's a mitzvah essay. So I don't know if that cloud's true. But Lamaisa, what is he saying? Because if you just had halacha aleph, he said there's a mitzvah essay l'sapir. He didn't say anything about telling your banim. And he said, even though it says, you know, the lila because it's the pasuk gadol bencha, and then he said alabi she'ein lo ben. So at that point, what would I thought that the mitzvah has nothing to do with your ben? I says the gadol bencha. So that's what he's saying now. Mitzvah lo even though it's a mitzvah, it's also a mitzvah. There's a secondary mitzvah lo dila banim.
So he's saying the afal pi she'ein lo ben. He completely changes the mitzvah of the. He's saying that at that point the Roman was saying the mitzvah is just to
tell over the story, whether you're the son or not a son or.
The son, it doesn't matter. In other words, the language you got to the bincha is just
to show you Leil Tezvav. That's what he's using the pasuk for.
That's it. But I want to say the language in the because that seems to fit into the language of the chinuch. He says
Lav
Zavka. In Kol Bria. In other words, it's a separate mitzvah, and now he's saying it's a mitzvah of Hodiya Lebanim. And he's changed it also. Lefi Dato Shel Ben Aviv Malamdo. Before he just said it was according to Misaper, or his language in the Sefer Mitzvah is according to Misaper. Now it's totally on the one listening.
Amen.
Amen.
It's more because in the Sefer Mitzvahs, when he spoke about all those things you're supposed to say over, and he said the equal pasuk is Vigadata Levincha. And here, when it comes to the pasuk of actually telling your sons, he says you don't have to tell all that stuff. It depends on the ability of the son. He says the son isn't too smart. When Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, So all those things that he said you should say over, it doesn't even apply with him to tell your son necessarily. And even though he said in the Sefer Mitzvahs that the whole source of that was Bikata to the Mincha.
To be honest, it's you take the Minchas Chinuch argument, which is, that Zachar is every day, and that's nice shot to explain, except for the fact that the Rambam doesn't have a mitzvah to say. Okay, but the point is that makes it that if I keep thinking about that, but that actually makes it more difficult to really understand the Rambam, because the Rambam's not thinking of a mitzvah every day. He's saying that Zachar is a mitzvah only on Pesach, and the Galut Bincha is a mitzvah on Pesach. And how did these two psukim get together?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's presenting two different mahalachs.
Look at what he adds. He says, when your son, you have to tell him according to how your son is. Right. If he's slow, and then he says, and if he's a gadol b'chacham.
Right.
So Moldiya Mashir Lana Mitzrayim. So again, to tell him what happened to us in Mitzrayim. The Nisim Shanas Lanu Ayadei Moshe Rabbeinu. He has a new thing over here. All of a sudden, that if your son is a chacham, you should tell him the Nisim that happened Ayadei Moshe Rabbeinu. Hakol He didn't even start off by that when he said there's a mitzvah zesek to speak about the English.
That other thing, that other language he says over here. Sachad Lashon Misaper. He doesn't say that here.
Right.
Here it's dependent upon the ben.
Yeah, by the mitzvah of telling your ben.
No, but he doesn't. But in terms of
the actual mitzvah of Saper, he didn't say anything about it. He just had to say it with an isim and a klal. Shanas level standard time.
So what is that? What is that like? I mean, you're troubled by this also. What does Kafif Sachos Lashon Misaper mean?
I don't know. He doesn't say that here. That's for sure.
No, but that's my point. If he, in other words, is it an explanation?
If he got the mitzvah, it wasn't, because when he said in the Sefer Mitzvahs, he wasn't talking that dafka on the mitzvah of Sipur to the ben. He was telling you what the general mitzvah was of Saper.
But he gets right into.
Because he uses that pasuk for the general mitzvah, but he wasn't talking about the specific mitzvah.
No, but that's what I'm wondering about. Is that here he so articulates. I mean, some would say it's not the mitzvah said, but what you're saying is that why does he have to say that?
Yeah, that's the Gemara's lesson, I think, when it says each son is tali. That's the language of the Mishnah. The Fidaito shel ben adi molemda. It's a strange language, the Mishnah. And it says the Fidaito shel ben. It says, why does it say avi molamdo? It should say avi magido or masapro. Why is it all son in the language of molamdo? I was talking to my son last night. I told him that he has to have a mitzvah to teach his son. And he says he disagrees with me. There's no mitzvah to tell my son. I said, what do you mean? He said, he says that's if he doesn't know, but he knows, and there's no mitzvah to tell somebody he knows.
I mean,
so that's
interesting.
He says there's no mitzvah. He knows already. He says he comes home with all his things, and he knows enough. He said, what am I supposed to tell him? He says he knows all about it. And I said, so you could always add new information. He said, could be, that's nice, but he said that's not the mitzvah.
Fascinating.
That's what he told me. So the truth is, I have a sefer that goes through the halachas of chinuch and what you have to tell your son. So Taka said that in the sefer, that the language of Haggadah quotes a Radak. That what's the language difference between Haggadah and Sipur? Sipur is you tell over a story, and Haggadah means you tell him something new. Right. And he says, so when it says V'gada to Lebenecha, you have to tell him something new. But if he knows it already, it's not a mitzvah. There's no point. I told him maybe the mitzvah is to retell the story, reinforce the story. He says, no, that's not. My son said, no, that's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to tell him, teach him.
That's. So why always?
And that is the language of the Mishnah, Malamdo, right? That if he died to Shabben, Avi Malamdo.
Yeah, but the limit there's always more to learn.
Yeah, so the Sefer Esau said that the mitzvah is to tell him something new, and if he knows things, he should try to find something new to tell him. But it seemed to be that wasn't like the Iker. Mitzvah lehodiyah, that's the shalat. Lehodiyah lebanim. Even I don't know when Beis he's telling you that there's a special mitzvah there, that's a chiddush, or that was known in Aleph already, because you're just saying that mitzvah lehodiyah lebanim, even if they didn't ask, because you might think if you just said Aleph, that the mitzvah to tell your son is only when he asks. So in Beis he's not chadash the halacha to tell your son. It's that he's telling you there's a mitzvah to be lehodiyah lebanim, even if he doesn't ask, which was also in the mitzvah, but could be an aleph. You already knew the mitzvah of part of the mitzvah was to tell your son exactly how the two psukim work, but he mentioned that, and now he's saying there's a mitzvah in basis there's a mitzvah to tell him even if he doesn't ask, because even if it's two psukim and one is to tell your son, but that pasuk is kishalcha, so you might think that it's only when he asks. Okay, but still.
If you think in terms of Pesach, and every year there's question, every year there's supposed to be questioning and so forth and so forth, then if it's only a matter of telling someone because you didn't know, everyone knows the story of Pesach after a very short amount of years. Right? So the mitzvah Sipur and Yetzias Mitzrayim cannot be just repeating. Just repeating?
When the Ram doesn't say you have to say something new. Ram says, "Afilu chachamim gedolim chayavim l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim." B'chol hamar l'zor tzira hariz b'shivach. When he says chachamim gedolim chayavim l'saper, he doesn't say the word seaport doesn't necessarily mean something new. It just means to retell the story.
So called marach b'dvarim.
Okay, that's meshubach, but it's not the actual chiyuv. See, when it comes to the bonim, I feel lo shal, it's lahodiyah to them. So
right.
Why does he change from? Why not lasaper? Lahodiyah implies to make it known to them, right? That they don't know. And the Pigdaidah should have been Avi Malamdo. Malamdo is also mashma. You're teaching him something. You're not just retelling him. You're not just retelling a story. It's all mashma by the son. You're being modiyah to him. But in the Rambam and the Sefer Mitzvahs, the Gadol was a main source of the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So there it's mashma Sipur. It's not mashma that you're telling over a story. Doesn't make a difference if he knows it or not. He doesn't say, by the way, unless he says it later someplace, but over here he doesn't say by Chachamim that it has to, it's their Shiloh Tshuva, right?
Right.
He just says at the mitzvah to say it over. He doesn't say it in my son even if they don't ask. But later on he says, show it. He says, Ein lo ben ishto shalta, ein lo isha sholin zeh manishtana. Ve'afilu hayu kulen chachamim. They should answer as that. That's what he says later. But I don't know if that goes into the mitzvah deraisa or not. You do strange things that the son should ask. Even though the mitzvahs, even if the son doesn't ask. So.
Right.
And even when you're talking to yourself, it says Shoal Atzma. I don't know if that goes into the mitzvah deraisa.
Yeah. That's what you get in terms of.
Later on in Dali, it goes into more what you have to. He's a Sarah Haskell, Big Nusul, saying Vishvav Ketan, Masim, Sapir, Shebetzchila, Hayu Abosemi, make Terech, Mulfanov. He brings even from before him. Kofrim, the Toin Achra, Hevel, Barodkin Achra, Vodazara, Messiah, Badas Amish, Kirvan, Makum, Logulam, and a time of Kirvan, Lihudo. Chain Maskul, Modia. So here he says Modia. Before he said Maskul, Masapir. Here it says Maskul, Modia, Shabani, Mian, Lufar, Matraim. V'chol HaRoashik Molanu. So here he speaks about what they did to us. Messiah, Venisman, Efal, Shanasa, Lanu, Ubechiro, Sainu, Cheru, Sainu. And Nisman, Efal, Shanasa, Lanu. But it doesn't say what Hashem did to them, right? Who should Yidrosh Mirami of the Rabbi Yeshua Kol Ha Persha. Kol Ha Mosi Murder Ramzim Meshubach.
And that's why the Pedro says this, but in the Hagar Shlema says that changes when you're answering the kids the question. Then you answer the question. You don't have to start with this and say I forget who says that. Who brings that saying that?
I saw someone say that Rishon that said if the child I saw someone brought down a Maisa by one of the Gedolim, his daughter asked him, Tati, why did you lift up the Kara?
Yeah.
And he says, because of Bari Mayin, and he skipped Manishtan, and he said,
really?
Yeah, I saw one of the Gedolim said that the daughter asked, and he said, he answered because of a Bari Mayin, and he didn't even say over the man. But it's hard to know. The problem with Ram is always hard to know what goes into the Raisa, what goes into the Rabbanan, what goes into the Mitzvah and the Mufri, because the things he says later on, Derek Shaila, is that part of the Raisa? He didn't mention that when he spoke about the actual Mitzvah. No. I say, in the words of Sibur and Nodia. But these two psukim are very hard for me to. Chayavim Lasapri B'Tzias Yisrael. So Pasha Shaf means even though they're not saying anything, they're not learning anything. No, they just they're saying over. Right. It doesn't say they have to be mechadish. It could be the word, but the Maisa doesn't say that. It's just so that's by Chal. But it could be by a Khan. You have to be Meldiya. You have to tell him something now. That's what my son told me.
Yeah, he told you have to tell him something.
Something new. But if they know already, he says they come, they know all about it. It's what they say over there. The kids come home with their little books and they're telling you things.
Right. Right.
So that to me, but I looked up. They had a certain site, but they brought down that before for a certain time. But certainly it doesn't work well with it. But I just don't know Pshat on the Sefer Mitzvah. I don't know Pshat here. The fact that they're different, that doesn't bother me. I know he changes, but I don't know exactly what is meant by the Sefer Mitzvahs, why the Ikras we got a Levincha, then how you fit in the two psukim. And it seems to be, it's certainly not two different mitzvahs, he doesn't count, he certainly is only counting one mitzvah, so how does it all become part of one big mitzvah, where it seems to be different things that you do?
Because by and also Zohar, especially when we do the Zohar Yom Shabbos the Kadsha, all that has to do is remember. It's a completely different context. Like a different.
Yeah, I think he's only trying to show you that the word Zachar is a Lashem. That's what he's trying to show. I don't think he's trying to. You don't do the same thing.
For some reason, I'm trying to remember. My wife's reading something from Yeshiva Ner. I think she said something to me about this, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I can't. I'll ask her when I get home if she read something of Yeshiva Ner about this in terms of something new at the Seder.
Yes, but he says when you tell a cotton or a tipish, you lo b'ni, my son, kulanu hayinu kulanu hayinu avadim kamo shiv chazul kol ebezu, because the son has to know what it means by avadim. But he says kulanu. Avoseinu. He says, in other words, at the beginning you notice he said Avoseinu. Here he says the word
which is the language he uses in the Sefer Mitzvahs. Lanu. He says in Sefer Mitzvahs he said
Mashar
Lanu Hashem.
Mashar Galanu.
Completely. The fact is that the difference is really major, because he's starting with this being the ikar, and then his begun, it's not just putting the psukim, it's like a complete shift in
with the major.
It's like right. In other words, it's not just like a little change in his writing style. It's like a total difference in the approach to the mitzvah.
And certainly the chinuch will learn like the Sefer Mitzvahs, the Ikar Mitzvahs, we got to love mincha, except he says mincha's lav dafka.
Right. Right, and he doesn't even bring down the other pasuk of Zachar. And the mincha scene is thinking Zachar, but he's thinking like it's the mitzvah every day, you know.
And the Rambam certainly wasn't counting that as the mitzvah every day. Mitzvah. It's not going to be in here, I don't think. The chinuch himself says the pasuk of Yigadah. Then he says in a mitzvah sheyiskar nisim v'inyanim she'iru lavoseinu b'yitzias mitzrayim ve'eich wakach akel yisbarach nikmaseinu mehin. He says like spelling the lashon of the Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvahs. V'afilu beino lebeinatzon imein sham acherim. It's masha there's acherim. They can't do it beino lebeinatzon, then you have to tell others. Okay, let me just see what he says on the other. It says on the bottom here, the difference between the Rambam and the chinuch is, he said the chinuch holds it's one mitzvah, Sefer receives Mitzrayim, and that's why he says, and And you learn from the pasuk that Bincha is lav, and our Zachar tells us that the pasuk of Bincha is lav dafka. But it's one. That's what I was trying to think. Maybe that's how we understood the Rambam too in Sefer Mitzvahs, and that. But it doesn't. So why does he say the Iker pasuk is a gadol Bincha, but it's lav dafka? Ulam, he says, a Rambam so is a shtei mitzvahs saying. Kamosh mashma lashon shekasa b'tchila mitzvah l'saper, asher kasa mitzvah lo dia l'banim. L'mashma shahodoa l'banav mitzvah v'nayatzma hanilmanas mei pasuk v'gadol l'bencha. L'chein heavy a Rambam shnei hapsukim. So I don't understand that. So then how does he count it as one? If it's two different mitzvahs, how does he count it as one?
I mean, there's the mitzvah sipur is by yourself. You just have to say it over.
Yeah. He doesn't say this, but something right over here makes me think that maybe when the Rambam says the Tchilas Halayla, he means, because the Rambam, according to, there's people that say, according to Rabbi Lezer ben, what you call it, it says the mitzvah of Pesach is only till Chatzos. So some people say matzah is also only until Chatzos. So maybe Sibri sees the Shrine is also until Chatzos. Right, so maybe that's why the Rambam said, he didn't mean at the very beginning of the night, he meant Tchilas Halayla, I mean in the first part of the night, in the beginning of the night, and not at the end of the night.
Right.
And that's because Sheish Matzah Morma now, because according to that, Matzah is only Munach with the Korban Pesach, which is until Chatzos. So maybe that's what he was stressing, Tchilas Halayla, because you're talking not Yotze the whole night.
And he doesn't bring it down in the yard.
And what? He doesn't mention it, he just says Lila.
So then he changes.
Does he bring down not some more Menachem? Does he add it all in place?
Yeah, he says that Menayin Shavlech HaMishas HaMu Hagaz L'Bim Rabim Hulei Mor B'Vortzeh Sheish Matzah Umor Menach Mefanecha. He does say that, but
so now the question is, you have to see what he holds by Chatzos. He holds that
by Chatzos.
He holds, I think he passed it like by Chatzos. I'm not sure. So probably this man Matzah Mor is only telling in Matzah Mor for sure is telling Korban Pesach. So maybe that's what it meant by Tchilas Halayla. It could be.
But you know, it's an interesting thing when you say it, because Herschel Schachter is makbid that his Seder ends before Chatzos, because he's holding the Hallel after Afikomis is all part of mostly all part of Sibur Yitzrayim. So if you hold that, you have to finish the whole Sibur Yitzrayim also before Chatzos. So I've heard he's makbid on his whole Seder being finished before.
Yeah, I didn't hear it from Hershel. I heard some people say that because when the Rambam says part of the Seder, part of the Sipur is the Hodos L'Shabbat.
Right.
So he says we're Yotzei that with the
Halal.
With the Halal. Right. So therefore the whole Halal has to be. But some people say only the first part of the Halal before the eating is Sibur Yitzrayim. The last part, because the last Halal is talked about the Lasa Lavo. So that's not part of the Shpach of Yitzias.
But those people are holding. But everyone's holding that Sibur Yitzrayim has to be done before Chatzos. You know,
I think so, but they say you're Yosef with the first Hal, and that's the first bit. That's why it's split up. Now, what made me think of this, because he says, well, the question is, if you have the mitzvah the whole year round that night, why do you have the mitzvah of Pesach? So he says, there's a big difference. The mitzvah the whole year round, you had the whole night to do. He says, the mitzvah of Pesach, you have to do it by Chatzos. So the differences. He doesn't really go into the psukim over. This is Mechilta, and everybody says, around the side where this Mechilta is, but they all bring down this Mechilta over Shem Ben Yochai. But I know that it's not so pushed. There's such a thing as Mechilta Shem Ben Yochai.
That's right.
You have to go, you have a class.